Now let's go with Praveen. Says, hi, my name is Praveen. I learned a lot of things from you, and you're the one of the best teachers in the community. Thank you, my friend. Let's take a look at your stuff. Let's see. Do we have more? Or is that the only piece? It seems like that's the only piece you want me to see. Oh, you have some cool stuff, man. That's nice. I'm sorry if I'm jumping into some pieces that you don't want me to check, but the modeling on this one's not bad. Texturing definitely needs a little bit more work. Again, very uniform. I don't love this color. And the metal is everywhere. You might want to increase the resolution. This is one of those examples, by the way. Like, this is a perfect example. You have 3 textures for this thing, 3 texture sets, but the surface area that this thing has, like the amount of pieces that you have and the amount of elements you have, is way too big. So this is one of those places where you can be totally fine having 6 texture sets instead, 12 texture sets, right? If the textile density requires it, especially if this thing is like very, very big in terms of scale, then having a lot of resolution is perfectly fine, right? Like, even games are going to be able, yeah, of course, metal edgeware. Even in this one, metal edgeware. Oh my god, no, this one I'm gonna call you out, Kanakamamedi, Praveen. Yeah, this metal edgeware, man, just be careful with that. Like, this is not okay. This is definitely not okay for metal edgeware. Metal edgeware should be a part of the process, of course, but it should not just be an excuse to just throw it everywhere. And also careful with your height intensity. But you showed me this one right here. Now let's take a look. Niagara particles farthing these, unreal water river for simulating water, volumetric fog. Okay, so it seems like you did everything. I'm getting that again, like the crunchy colors, guys. Very here. Let me show you. Sakura trees photo. So if you take a look at these photos right here, even this one that looks very contrasty, right? Do this exercise, guys. Just bring this into Photoshop and sample the values. Sample the values that we have right here. So this is the darkest values, or one of the darkest values that we have. And look at where it is. It's not in absolute like black, right? That's like 10% value. And then we take a look at yours, right? We copy this image. And we take a look at the value, and that's almost absolute black right there. And there's no color information. It's just black. So that makes it look very crunchy. And that makes it look very, again, fakeish, because normally in the real world, we're never going to have like absolute blacks. So as you can see, I'm just using Control L here to push my levels a little bit higher into this position. And look at that. That image automatically looks a little bit more interesting, a little bit more realistic. I know it looks a little bit more washed out as well. That's why we will need to control some like values or color balances or things like that to really inject a little bit more juice. For instance, I'm gonna add a little bit more redness to the midtones and a little bit more redness to the shadows as part of like the bounce light. So we can play around it. It's fine to have contrast, but you don't want to have too much contrast. Like, this looks way too crunchy, right? And it doesn't look realistic. Same for this one. This looks way too saturated. Like, you're never going to see this saturation with your eyes. And we don't have any sort of like atmosphere here. Again, there's tricks here. There's compositional tricks that you can use to elevate these pieces a little bit more. It's a good piece. I love the fact that you did the breakdown right here with all of these elements right here. But yeah. Geki says, what is metal edgeware thing? You don't know what metal edgeware is? You're about to get schooled now, man. You're about to get the knowledge, the secret. And I'm actually going to show you with one of the files that I worked with one of my mentees yesterday. Here. Oh, it's not this one. This one. So we have this shingles right here. Okay. Metal edgeware is one of those things that we can do to break up or to add a little bit of damage to the borders of the elements, like that. But a very common thing that we tend to do is we just use the metal edgeware generator, and as you can see, we get metal edgeware everywhere. And this is wrong. Why is this wrong? Because objects in the real world, they do not get damaged uniformly. There's always going to be a little bit of variation. Certain parts of the element are going to get more damage, and other parts of the element might not get as much of that damage. So what I like to do is, after I add my metal edgeware, I add this grunge concrete effect, or any fill layer that has a little bit of variation. And you multiply that. You use a multiplication filter, right, to multiply this against the metal edgeware. And you can use this, as you can see, to drive how much or how little of that metal edgeware you want to have. Then, after that, you can even add another paint layer and manually paint in certain elements that are going to really give you that artistic control over where the metal edgeware needs to be. I did another blur slope and another grunge effect, so there's a couple of other filters, but you can see how by using only the mask generator, we can go from something that looks very obvious and very simple to something that looks a little bit more sort of like thought out and a little bit more control in terms of the artistic direction that we want. That's metal edgeware, and that's the mistake that our good friend Sandeep made right, or sorry, Praveen made right here, which is on this particular robots. As you can see, we have metal edgeware everywhere, absolutely everywhere. And that's not realistic. It's not going to give us a nice result. So yeah, when you see it from afar and you're not paying attention, it might not look as bad. But when you really pay attention to it, it just doesn't cut it. Okay? That's metal edgeware, and that's how we fix it. So yeah, there we go. Let's go to the next one.